then slowly getting into the other side of the bay, and you start having this nice panoramic view of the city. Ushuaia city. Those buildings up in the mountains are hotels. Above the hotels there's a small glacier, and there's a river, not a river, more like a creek actually, that comes down from that glacier and ends in this bay and provides most of the city with water. There is just above most of the populated area, there's one building with very steep roof that goes all the way to the ground. That's a water purification plant for the city center. The two other ends of the city is narrow but very long. The two other ends get water from other rivers. Those two are rivers. One comes from a glacier, a bigger glacier than this, that is from behind these mountains, where there's Andorra Valley. And at the other end of the town, that river that provides that section of the city with water starts at a lake in the national park. So the water that we drink here is very pure. And the water that we brought here for you, it's from here, from Tierra del Fuego. This one. It's from, I'll show you where they take it from. I'll show you later on, after the museum. It's called Anoka, which in local language means moon. I don't know why they have chosen this name. Anyways, look at the view of the city, very colorful city. This is a tradition that we inherited from the first people that came to Patagonia, not only to Tierra del Fuego, but all of this southern region, not only in Argentina, but both Chile and Argentina. Among the first buildings that were brought in were these sort of prefabricated houses that the owners of these enormous estancias, ranches, used to buy by catalog. These houses, back then, we talk of the late 1800s, early 1900s, this, during that time, these modern houses were made of, for the time, was modern and light materials. So these houses have a wooden structure and corrugated iron outside. Like you see, there's a house very close to the water with a bright red roof. That's the oldest in town. That one was bought by catalog. It's Swedish. That one is from 1913. So it's the oldest that is still standing in the city. And these houses were painted in bright colors. These houses came in bright colors. Now people, we don't buy houses by catalog anymore, but people still use a lot of corrugated iron, more as a tradition than something that we really need. Corrugated iron is very cold material, but it warms up fast, so for the roof it's good, so the snow sort of slides down easily. And people still paint the houses in bright colors.
¿Vos me estás hablando? Ah, ¿qué hacemos?
Ah, bueno. It's gonna turn and we usually get into there. What's the old airport of Ushuaia, but it's the gate is closed. It's too early. And we come from a long weekend. The 8th of December is the Ascension of the Virgin. In Argentina it's a holiday, and it was on Thursday. So Friday they turn it into a holiday too, to make a long weekend. This is the old airport. See the hangars here, and right behind this hangar is for the sea part of the runway. all of this side, all of this land on this side of the bay belongs to the Argentine Navy. This airport, we don't use it anymore. It's only used for the touristic overflights by helicopter or small planes, like Cessna planes. They're the only ones using it. This was the unsafest airport in Argentina until the new airport was opened. The runway is very short, and as you can see now, it's very close to the city and the mountains. So the pilots had a short distance to drop height. So they used to make like a curl before landing. They were overflying the city, very close to the city, in fact. And they had to land in a short runway. It's 1.6 kilometers long with crosswinds. The runway is north-south, and the wind here most of the times it's blowing from the west. No, ahora no. There's not even villages, it's like outposts or sites with 5 houses, 3 families, things like that. There's 3 or 4 like that. The rest is all ranches. And then to the south, where the mountains are, like following the line of Beagle Channel, there's nothing. There's only some military presence, but very little, and 2 national parks. So all along the coast, there's been for decades a national park called the Agostini, and that's on a part of the Andes. I mean, just if you continue this line of mountains to the west, they get a bit higher on the Chilean side, and there's a small ice field with glaciers going down to the sea. You will actually see that. After you leave Ushuaia, you're going to the west, if I'm not wrong, right? So if you're going to the west, you'll go along Beagle Channel, let's say 2 hours, 3 hours maybe. After you leave the port of Ushuaia, you will start getting on an area where Beagle Channel splits in 2. There is the southwest branch and the northwest branch. You will take the northwest branch, and it gets narrow, very dramatic as well. The mountains, the scenery is beautiful, pristine. Nobody lives there, and you will start seeing these glaciers that come down from that small ice field. Well, that area is a national park. But between that national park and our national park is mainly forest. There's a new national park that was created 2 years ago only. So now there's 3 national parks connected. There's a huge area that is fully preserved, and we're very happy with that. The new national park in Chile, it's called Yendegaia. The old one is the Agostini, and the one in Argentina, it's called Tierra del Fuego. This is our main street, San Martin, our main square on the right hand side. This whole block belongs to the Catholic Church, Roman Catholic Church, to the Salesian order. The Salesians, if there are any Catholics here, or if you know what I mean, the different orders like the Jesuits, the Salesians were the ones that had an important presence in Patagonia. So throughout Patagonia you will see Don Bosco, which was the head of this order, this Catholic order, Don Bosco. And there's a very interesting museum at the Salesian mission in Punta Arenas, since you're going to go there. If you want to visit it, it's very interesting.
Are you saying Punta Arenas is on this island?
No, Punta Arenas is not on this island. It's just across the Strait of Magellan. Punta Arenas is on the mainland. It's not on an island.
Any skiing or anything?
There is skiing. I'll show you later. The ski resort. We are now going to visit our museum, and after the museum we'll take the road, leave the city and take the only road that there is, and we go to the Andean crossing, and in the way back on the same road we will stop for lunch, the typical lamb barbecue lunch. This corner that is under construction that you'll see now on the right, this building was abandoned for more than 20 years. I came to Ushuaia 22 years ago and it was already abandoned. But finally, you know who got it? The Hard Rock Cafe.
Really?
There's going to be a Hard Rock Cafe here in Ushuaia. Truly, I don't know how they're going to survive, because it's a small town. We are 80,000 people. I mean, during the summer season, maybe yes, because there's lots of tourists and this is very vibrant. But then May and June, there's almost no one here. It's very quiet. And then July, August, September, we have lots of skiers. But it's not remotely as many as we have in the summertime. So we get lots of skiers, but still few people. So again, the government house, we saw it before from behind, from the coast. We keep going along the main street, sorry.
What hours are the shops open normally? 9 to 5?
Shops they open 9:30, 10 in the morning. They do siesta between 1 and 3, 1 and 4. And then they open again 3, 4 to 8 or 9 p.m. In Argentina, you know, we eat late and we go to bed late, everything. But in the morning, things start late too. In the town, there's almost nothing going on before 10. In the city, there's lots of restaurants that serve our typical dishes, like king crab or sea bass or asado, which is barbecue, beef or lamb. Lamb would be more typical here than beef, but there's both. There's chocolate shops as well, many along Main Street, and some souvenir shops too.
What's that building we just passed?
The building that we just passed is a shop, but it's very well decorated outside with figures, and there's famous characters of the history. Fitzroy, it's in one of the balconies there. There's Fitzroy, who was a cartographer in charge of an expedition to make a map, a thorough map of Tierra del Fuego. And with that expedition is that they discovered this passage, this body of water that you have taken to get here. And they name it after one of the ships of that expedition, Beagle. And we are now approaching to Ushuaia's naval base. All of this compound to your right is the naval base. This was originally the prison of this town. So I told you the first whites here were Anglican missionaries. They came in 1869. 1884 is the first Argentines that come here to mark or to show Argentine sovereignty in this part of the world. This is a time in which both Chile and Argentina are expanding their territories to the south. Something similar to what happened to the Americans expanding to the west and taking over those lands that were not lands of the natives. Well, the same was happening more or less at the same time in Chile and Argentina. In this case, they were expanding their territories to the south, towards Cape Horn. In 1884, then, they come to the Tierra del Fuego. They pick Ushuaia, they hoist our flag, and there's a few families that come here to stay here to live, but they knew that they needed to have more people to claim sovereignty, and they needed to develop this area to make it more attractive, so slowly they could build a civilian population in this part of the world. It wasn't easy, if you try to picture this, over more than 100 years ago. It wasn't easy to convince people to move to such a remote place. There was nothing here but nature. And the natives that lived here were very, at the eyes of that time, very primitive. People that lived naked, that used to spread fat from sea lions all over their bodies. They were smelly. They were eating most of the time raw meat or melting fat and drinking it. So it wasn't really very attractive for people to move to this place. The ships were coming maybe once every 6 months. The easiest way then to populate and develop was with prisoners. And they set 2 prisons, one in Ushuaia and one on another island that is part of this region, on Staten Island, same name as the island in New York. The one in Staten Island was a military prison, and the one in Ushuaia was a second offenders jail. The first building was built just like the rest of the houses in town, wooden structure and corrugated iron. But by the turn of the century, the prisoners that were here started building this building that now you can see to your right. It took them 10 years to build it. It has 380 single cells, so it's a quite large building. It has a panoptical design, which for the time was very modern. Panoptical is the aisles have a radial design, so it's like a hand, where the fingers would be the pavilions with the cells, and the palm of the hand would be the main hall connecting all 5 pavilions. That is actually what you see with these big windows. That would be the palm of the hand. Now, these pavilions are today used as a museum. Out of the 5 pavilions that the building has, 4 belong to the museum. This one here, all along, like parallel to the bus, that's where you will find the Maritime and Prisons Museum on the ground floor. So you have to walk and go all the way to the end of the aisle to get to the transversal part of the building, where originally they used to have latrines and showers on the ground floor, and the dining room on the top floor for the prisoners of that pavilion. Each pavilion had the same structure. So at the very end, you have to walk to the very end to get to the Maritime Museum. So at the end, you will find replicas of all the famous ships that have explored the area. And along the aisle, you'll find the different stories and photographs of the prisoners and life at the prison. On the first floor, but on the same aisle, you will find exhibitions related with Antarctic expeditions, which you might find interesting, and also some taxidermied birds and some mammals, also taxidermied, like sea lions. As you walk into the building, straight ahead That would be, if we think this is a hand, would be the middle finger. That is something that I really suggest you to visit. It's what we call the historical aisle. Is the first pavilion that was built, and they kept it as it was found when they took over the building to turn it into a museum. It gives you a better idea of how life at this prison could have been. The ring finger would be between the one that has the most of the exhibits and the historical one. That's where the ring pavilion or ring finger or that pavilion is. There is an art gallery there. And the other one is a shop, a souvenir shop. And this one that you see now is the only pavilion that is not used. We don't have access to that pavilion. We will go into the building by the main hall. As you walk into the building, on the right hand side are the toilets, and at the end, at the Maritime Museum, there are also toilets. You're poor, you don't have health insurance, you have a disease, you die. As simple as that. The government is not assisting people. They don't have the network to do that. It's not enough what they can offer. Some other countries in Latin America is sort of the same. Probably Brazil in terms of healthcare is the worst coverage. And we do have lots of failures, lots of problems, but still lots of benefits. A lot of people have access to these benefits. If you don't have money, the state will never leave you alone. It's always assisting people, citizens. Then each province has its own budget, and you have more or less benefits according to the province where you live. This province particularly, it's very young compared to other provinces in Argentina. It has a lot of assistance from the federal government. It has some important resources like oil and natural gas. We provide gas to half of Argentina. The province, and it's got very few people as well. In this province there's 160,000 inhabitants. That's very few for a province. It's considered a quite wealthy province. And for you just to have an idea, the budget that Ushuaia has is the same. Ushuaia has 80,000 inhabitants. It's the same budget that a county next to Buenos Aires has, one of the largest ones near Buenos Aires, that has 1.5 million inhabitants. Ushuaia with 80,000 uses the same kind of money, has the same kind of money. Say again?
Federal money.
Federal money, a lot of is federal money, and then it's also the fact that it's a capital city that gets more money. But yes, you're right, federal money. Yeah. So here we are already outside of Ushuaia in a valley that is right behind the mountains of the city. Those are the mountains that got some snow, are a bit higher than the ones in the city, and obviously there was a front of snow behind the city and not much in Ushuaia. We're going to make a stop now to enjoy the view, for you to take photos in just a moment. The mountains are all of them part of the Andes. What's typical here is at the bottom of the valleys, all of our valleys at a certain point got flooded. The ones that were quite deep and close to the oceans got flooded by the sea, forming channels, like Beagle Channel, for instance, or the Strait of Magellan. Those are glacial valleys that got flooded by the sea. In more inland, like here, they got flooded with fresh water that finally, and during the past 12,000 years, those flooded sections were occupied by a moss, forming huge pit bogs. So pit bogs are also typical here. We're stopping here for you.
Getting cloudy.
Yes.
Forest. But there are some berries though. There's two plants from the berberis family that produce berries, and one of those is endemic to Patagonia, and it is said that who eats those berries will come back to eat some more. This bush is a bush. It's a thorny bush with yellow flowers. You might see it in bloom now. It's called calafate. In Spanish, it's called calafate. The berries are like blueberries, just a bit smaller. Blueberries are more blue, and these are more purple, dark purple. The taste is similar, although these ones are a bit more acidic, but they're very, very tasty. And then there's a type of strawberry that is actually more like a raspberry that's on the ground. That one is small for both. It's like a raspberry, the shape of the structure of. The south face of these mountains. Look at the view of peat bogs. Whatever you see in red on the ground is peat bogs. There's that river along the valley. The trees is mainly beavers. Then the forest covering the slopes of the mountains up to 700 meters, 2,100 feet. And that's the height of tree line, timber line. So as you can see, our mountains are not so high. They look higher than what they really are. That's the highway department, sorry. Those warehouses that you see down there. They have all these machines to clean the roads. It's mainly work for winter time. Snow plowers and things they got in those warehouses. So here we are now getting into these mountains, into a valley, superior valley in the mountains. And in a couple of minutes we're going to be at the Andean crossing, where usually there is a panoramic view over the lakes. We'll see when we get there. These trees by tree line, they look like a bush. The same tree by the sea can be 25 meters high. 25 meters, it's like 75 feet. The height of the tree. The same tree at tree line is 50 centimeters. That's not even 2 feet. The same tree. And as you can see, we're also getting close to the summit of the mountains. The summit is closer to us now. That's because we're slowly going higher. But as our mountains are not so high, 500 meters above sea level is already a lot. It's close to tree line. And that's the height of the Andean crossing. Yeah? To go from one side to the other side of the Andes, we go through this Andean pass, through this mountain pass, that is at almost 500 meters above sea level. 1,500 feet. This crossing, it's called Garibaldi Pass. Garibaldi was the man in charge of building the road. He was in charge of designing where the road was going to go to cross the Andes, to connect Ushuaia with the other city in the north of this island. Before this was open, the only way to connect was by sea, by boats. It used to take a week to connect the two towns. Now it takes 3.5 hours. Here we are. This is the pass. Down there, by moments, you will see an old road. If you look now to the left, you can see it. That's the road built by Garibaldi in 1936. In 1970, they changed this section of the road that was too steep, curvy, difficult. So they opened this upper road. It's only a section of the new road. And in the 90s they paved it. And they widened the road. It used to be a lot narrower than this. So we're gonna go just a bit farther to be able to turn around. And then we will stop at the panoramic viewpoint at Garibaldi Pass. Take a look carefully between the trees. You might see a beaver dam. Yeah? Down there is an old one. That mud over there, that's an old abandoned beaver dam. Look down by the lake. There's a whole area where beavers had been working. If you haven't seen it, remember, we're turning in a moment and going back. Now, look now to the left, down there. That's beaver work. So this first lake, it's called Escondido, which means hidden lake. And the one behind, far in the distance, is Fagnano. Fagnano is the largest lake in the island. Escondido is this, what you see. Fagnano, the other one, is 110 kilometers long. Like almost 70 miles long. And you only see a portion of it. That large lake is on a tectonic fault. From the lake to the north, to the other side, is the South American plate. From the lake south, where we are, including the Antarctic Peninsula, all of that is the Scotia plate. So here we are, this is where we are turning. You will see the same view now for people on the right. We want to be fair to everyone. So again, Escondido Lake.
I think we should go over
a las niñas van, tiene un carro allá abajo, meta chicote a su paradal. Tiene un carro allá abajo, meta chicote a su paradal. Han comenzado del más bueno, luego a las rosas se irán. Seguirán por lo de Vallejo, en lo de Fernández, Villanueva. Seguirán por lo de Vallejo.
Oh, let me get out of your way.
No.
I'm sorry.
No.
Thank you.